This is a Sikha from Lakutus Sikhas, Chelek Tezvav, Parshas Vayetze, Sikha Aleph. And the topic of the Sikha is that in this week's Parsha, we learn about the bracha to Yaakov of Ufaratzta Yom Akedma V'Tzafein V'Negba. And Chazal connect this bracha of Ufaratzta to the fulfillment of the mitzvah of Shabbos, and especially to the mitzvah of Tchumen on Shabbos. And there are three parts in the Sikha. The Rebbe, number one, ask three questions on this. Number two, present a teaching from the Mittel Rebbe about the uniqueness of the mitzvah of Shabbos. And number three, based on this, answer the three questions. Regarding Hashem's bracha to Yaakov Avinu, of Ufaratzta Yom Akedma V'Tzafein V'Negba, so Chazal teach in the Gemara in Shabbos that Kol HaMa'anigas HaShabbos, anyone who delights the Shabbos, so Noisnim Lo Nachla Bli Meitzarim, they give him a boundless heritage. Shenemar, like it says in the pasuk. So this is a pasuk in Yeshaya, where prior to this pasuk it says V'Karasel Shabbos Einig, that the person delights Shabbos. So it says that as a result, Oz Tisanag Al Hashem Geimer, then you will delight on Hashem, and V'Chaltichla Nachlas Yaakov, I will give you the heritage of Yaakov. And the Gemara explains, like Avram, not like by Avram v'chulu, where by him it says, I'll give you this whole land, v'like Yitzchak v'chulu, not like Yitzchak, where it says, I'll give you these lands, plural, but still limited to these lands. Elake Yaakov, v'achalticha nachlas Yaakov refers to the bracha that's given to Yaakov, shekasav boy, that it says about him, ufaratzta yom akedma v'tzafein v'negba, that you will burst out in every direction, to the west, to the east, to the north, and to the south. Now it's known that the reward of a mitzvah is midda connected midah. In other words, the reward relates to the mitzvah that the person performs. So we have to understand over here, in what sense is the mitzvah of Shabbos, and Einik Shabbos, considered bli meitzarim, which as a result, its reward is also a nachla bli meitzarim. What's the connection between the mitzvah and the reward over here? The mitzvah is Einik Shabbos, Shabbos, and the reward is a nachla bli meitzarim. In what way is Shabbos bli meitzarim that as a result the reward is a nachla bli meitzarim? Now we also find this idea that the reward for Shmir Shabbos is the bracha of Ufaratzta, which is a nachal bli meitzarim, regarding Yaakov himself. So not only do we find it regarding Shmir Shabbos in general, but also regarding Yaakov himself. Because Chazal say, Avram she'ein kasav by Shmir Shabbos, Avram, who by him it's not written that he fulfilled the mitzvah of Shabbos, so therefore Yorish Ha'elam b'midah, he inherited the land in a limited way. Shenemar, like it says in the pasuk, Kum arise, Yisalach ba'aretz, walk in the land, the la'arko la'rachba, in its width and breadth. So it's limiting the land that he inherited. Aval Yaakov she'kasav by Shmir Shabbos, however Yaakov, who by him it is written that he fulfilled Shabbos, Shenemar, like it says, Vayichanes pnei ha'ir, he camped in front of the city, which teaches us that Nichnas im dumdumei chama, he came in right before sunset, v'kavad tchumim im ba'ijim, so he established the tchum of Shabbos while it was still day. So we see over here that he fulfilled the mitzvah of Shabbos, so therefore, Yaresh Sa'elam Shalai b'midah, he inherited the land in an unlimited, in a boundless way. Shenemar, like it says in the pasuk, so we see this idea of Shabbos being connected to the bracha of Ufaratzta, written explicitly by Yaakov himself. Now, Mefarshim explained that the meaning of the words over here in the Medrash, that Avram shein kosov by Shmir Shabbos, that it's not written by Avram that he fulfilled Shabbos, the meaning is not that it's not mentioned anywhere in the Torah that Avram kept Shabbos, because it says regarding Avram that Vayishmar Mishmarti, and Chazal explain that Vayishmar Mishmarti means that afilu hilchas aruv chatzeres, which are only midrabanan on Shabbos, haya Avram yedea. So rather the meaning is that Shmir Shabbos isn't written clearly and specifically, whereas by Yaakov it's written specifically. So that's the meaning of the Medrash over here. Now, since the mitzvah of Shmir Shabbos is emphasized by Yaakov, and it's written specifically, so it indicates that he performed it in a very special way. He performed it in an outstanding way. And it's for this reason that he merited the bracha of Ufaratzta, for the way that he fulfilled the mitzvah of Shabbos. In addition, we also have to say that from the fact that the Torah explicitly mentions kavat chumin, of all the details of Shabbos which Yaakov fulfilled, so that indicates that even though the bracha of Ufaratzta is connected to Shmir Shabbos in general, as Chazal say over here, Yaakov shekasav by Shmir Shabbos in general, nevertheless it has a special connection to chumin. In other words, the special quality of the mitzvah of Shabbos in which Yaakov excelled is especially expressed in the fulfilling of the inyan of Tchumen. So we're taking out 2 points from here. Number one, that it's not just Yaakov fulfilling Shabbos, but rather it's that he excelled in it. And number two, it's especially connected and expressed in the inyan of Tchumen. This excelling of Yaakov in the mitzvah of Shabbos is expressed in fulfilling the inyan of Tchumen. And this is going to lead into two questions. And this leads into two questions. Number one, in what way was the Shmiras Shabbos of Yaakov unique and special compared to that of Avram, that as a result, Shmiras Shabbos is mentioned by Yaakov, and as a result, Yaakov specifically merited the bracha over Faratzta? And number two, how is this expressed in the inyan of Tchumen? So now we're going to explain a certain idea, and that's going to lead into answering our questions. So we will understand this by first prefacing what the Middle Rebbe, who is the Bala Gul of Yud Kislev, the day where this Sikha was said, what he explains in his Maimer Ata Echad is the difference between the mitzvah of Shabbos and other mitzvahs. The difference is that by other mitzvahs, since their kiyum is through Aveda V'Asiyah, through doing something actively, so therefore there's a difference between the way it's fulfilled by great tzaddikim and simple people, because what they're doing is different. For example, when great tzaddikim put on tefillin opposite their hearts and on their heads, so their hearts and minds are on a higher level than that of simple people. And the same distinction applies by other mitzvahs. So when it comes to a mitzvah saseh, there's a difference between what each person is doing. And great tzaddikim will do it on a much higher level than simple people. On the other hand, by the mitzvah of Shmir Shabbos, which is a mitzvah saseh, but it consists of resting and abstaining from doing malachas, it's by not doing something, so there's no difference between one yid and another. Because although simple people abstain from regular activities, and great tzaddikim abstain from performing the malachas in the Mishkan, which are on a much higher level, but nevertheless, it's only different in terms of what they're abstaining from. However, they are all the same in the actual abstaining itself. They're just not doing. And so that's the difference between the mitzvah of Shmir Shabbos and all other mitzvahs saseh. When a person fulfills the Shvisa and Menucha of Shabbos, because, like it says, it's be'ein of kilu kol malachta yasuya. A person is not doing their activities because they experience it and they feel that everything is already done. And because of Einik Shabbos, a person is not mahar klal ba'asakav. A person doesn't think about their work whatsoever. Then ein lecha einik gadol mizeh. There's no greater pleasure than this. Now, the Middle Rebbe explains that the reason everyone is the same by the mitzvah of Shabbos, what's the inner reason for this? It's because the main mitzvah of Shabbos is ben menuchas hanefesh ba'atzmusa bebchinas yichida. The mitzvah of Shabbos, the main mitzvah of Shabbos is the menuchas hanefesh in its essence, on the level of yichida, which is higher than being revealed in a person's mind and heart. Meaning that the mitzvah of Shabbos is connected with the etzam hanefesh, the level of yichida. And it's for this reason that there's no difference between one yid and another yid by the mitzvah of Shabbos. Because on the level of yichida, all yidden are equal, from the greatest yid to the simplest yid. So because the mitzvah of Shabbos, the main mitzvah of Shabbos, is the menuchas nefesh in its very essence on the level of yichida, which is higher than any type of revelation that it would distinguish between one person's level and the next. But rather, it's a place of the essence of a yid where all yidden are equal, therefore all yidden are equal in the fulfillment of the mitzvah of Shabbos. And according to this, the Middle Rebbe explains why we say in Tfilas Mincha on Shabbos, we say, Ki me'itcha hi menuchasam, v'al menuchasam yakdishu Hashemecha. The menucha of Shabbos is me'itcha mamish, from the very essence of Hashem, from Mahusay v'atzmusay yizbarach. And therefore the menucha of Shabbos is connected with the etzam hanefesh mamish of a yid, which is the level of yichida. And that's why it continues with V'al menuchasam yakdishu Hashemecha. So it starts with Kimi itcho hi menuchasam, from Hashem's very essence, and because of that V'al menuchasam yakdishu Hashemecha, that it speaks about the inyan of Kiddush Hashem, because the inyan of Kiddush Hashem, of Mesiras Nefesh al Kiddush Hashem, is found in its entirety by all Yidden, equally, without any distinction. It's there in its entirety and by all Yidden equally. And this is because the kayach of Kiddush Hashem comes from the level of Yechidah. And it's for this reason that V'al menuchasam yakdishu Hashemecha, since the menucha of Shabbos and Kiddush Hashem are connected to the level of Yechidah, so therefore it says V'al menuchasam, over the menucha of Shabbos, which comes from the level of Yechidah, yakdishu Hashemecha, you have the inyan of Kiddush Hashem. Now, the reason the level of Yechidah is whole by every Yid, regardless of the state of one's koiches, which by one's koiches there are vast differences, The reason that the level of Yechida is whole by every Yid, regardless of the states of one's Koiches, is because the level of Yechida is completely elevated beyond the Koiches of a person. It is beyond the state of Gili, like we said earlier from the Maimer of the Mittel Rebbe, that it's B'chinas Yechida Shalamayla B'chinas Agili B'mayach V'leiv. Meaning, Yechida is even higher than the level of Makifim of the Neshama. There are the Makifim, and Yechida is even higher than that. Even though the Makifim themselves are higher than the Koiches Pnimim of a person. Since also the Makifim have a revealed and relative impact on a person. As Chassidus explains the Maimer Azal in the Gemara of Afal Gav de Inu Loy Chazu, Mazlayu Chazu, Chassidus explains that thoughts of tshuva come to a person from the level of Mazel of the Neshama, which is the level of Makif of the Neshama. So we see that even though the Makifim are also higher than the Koiches Pnimim, but nevertheless they have a connection to them, and therefore they could affect that a person has thoughts of tshuva. However, Yechida is even higher than being able to have a revealed impact on a person, to the extent that it seems that it has no connection to the person. And therefore the Yechida cannot reside in a person's body. Moreover, we said it's even higher than the Makifim, so it cannot even reside in the Makifim of a person, like one's clothing and house, which is where the Makifim of the Neshama reside. The Yechida cannot reside in these Makifim because they have a connection and they are tailored for the person, while the Yechida, like we said, is completely removed from a person. The Yechida resides, as the Mittler explains in the Maimer, in the Daled Amas of a person, which are harachokim betachlis harichuk ashe ein richuk yesem mimenu, which are completely distant and removed from the person. There's nothing at a greater distance from the person that we consider within the framework of a person. They're completely distant and removed from the person, the Daled Amas around the person, and therefore the Yechida can reside there. And this is the reason why there's the din of Daled Amas on Shabbos. As Chazal learned from the pasuk of Shvu Ish Tachtav Vayetze Ish Mim Kaimei. This is because the revelation of Yechida, which resides in the Dalet Amos of a person, is, like we explained, is on Shabbos. So therefore on Shabbos we have the din of Dalet Amos, which is where the Yechida resides. According to this, we can now understand the connection of the bracha of Ufaratzta with the mitzvah of Shabbos. Ufaratzta is a nachala bli mitzarim, a boundless nachala, which in its truest sense is connected to Atzmusay Muhusa Yisbarach, Hashem's essence, which has no limitations or constraints. And this is nimshach, this is drawn down, this nachala bli mitzarim of Atzmusay Muhusa Yisbarach is drawn down through Shmir Shabbos, which, as we learned, is mi'itcha himenuchasam from mi'itcha mamish from Atzmusa Mehusa Yisbarach. So both of them are connected to Atzmusa Mehusa Yisbarach. And this is also the advantage of the Shmir Shabbos of Yaakov Avinu over the Shmir Shabbos of Avram. Like we asked earlier, what's the advantage of Yaakov's Shmir Shabbos over Avram's? By Avram, the Torah includes the detail of Shmir Shabbos in his general fulfillment of the whole Torah, because his inyan wasn't to show the greatness of Shmir Shabbos, which is the revelation of Yechida over other mitzvahs. The level of Yechida specifically shined by Yaakov, who, as we know, is the Kava Emtsoi, which specifically the Kava Emtsoi goes all the way up to Pnimis HaKeser. And the reason why Yechida shined by Yaakov was because Yaakov had complete and absolute bittul, which is the kli for the gili of Yechida. And therefore the Torah says, as an introduction to the bracha of Ufaratzta, V'hoya zaracha ka'afara oretz. The reason it mentions this is because this is the kli for the Yechida, since Offer represents complete and absolute bittul. And therefore the level of Yechida shined by Yaakov, which is expressed and revealed in Shmir Shabbos. According to this, we can also understand why Tchumen is singled out from all the aspects of Shabbos. The Tchum of a person is similar to a person's Dalet Amos, since the Tchum is Mekoymei of a person, which, like we said, is completely removed from the person, and that's where the Yechida resides, which is why we learn about it. We learn the whole idea of Tchumen from the pasuk that we mentioned earlier, of Vayetze Ish Mim Kaimei. And from this is understood that the revelation of the level of Yechida is connected to the Tchum of a person, just like it's connected to the Dalet Amos of a person. In other words, just like the level of Yechida resides in the Dalet Amos of a person, so too we can say it resides in the general space of a person, in the Tchum of a person. And therefore, even though the revelation of Yechida expresses itself in the general kiyum of the mitzvah of Shabbos, like we explained from the Maimon the Mittel Rebbe, nevertheless it has a special connection to Tchumen, where the level of Yechida resides. And therefore, the Medrash singles out the mitzvah of Tchumen on Shabbos that Yaakov fulfilled.